Greetings. Another day, another story. Here we go on to glory with a brand new story. But before we do that, let's go ahead and do our proverb of the day. If you watch your pot, your food will not burn. If you watch your pot, your food will not burn. And that's a proverb from the area of Mauritania, West Africa, Mauritania, land of the Moors. All right. Now, for today, we're still in our mud cloth roots. We've got almost 2 more weeks left of reading from Mud Cloth Roots. And today, we've got a poem here from Stajabu. And our poem today is, How Do They Oppress Us? This is a theme piece here today. I try to put these all together so they fit. Okay, pieces to a puzzle that I collect along the way. Put them all together and come up with a story for today. That's how we do it here. At Black Flag Headquarters, Doc at noon and 9. So, how did they oppress us? Let us count the ways. They oppress us with every chocolate, sugar, sweetened box of breakfast cereal in colorful packages that seduce our youth and make them sugar addicts before they are 2. They oppress us with 2s in many forms. 2 parties, 1 aim. 2 choices, evil and eviler. 2-for-1 sales of merchandise we don't even need. Let us count the ways we love our oppression. Ooh, DuPont, we love your nylon trappings itching our legs while they run. They run and snag, and we run to the nearest oppressive superstore to grab a new pair. And what about the hairstyles that oppress us more and more? Perms, dyes, straighteners, extensions galore. Damage compliments of chemical companies that are overjoyed to sell us a conditioner and repair kit after they have helped us kill the hair follicle and we lose it. In the front and back after being attacked by the commercialization of the skewed perception of beauty that says your hair must be black, blonde, red, gold, or platinum and sway in the wind. If you want to win or keep her or him, we can run, but we can't hide from the oppressors' ads that make us want to wear and chew whatever they want us to. Oh, how oppressed we are, and oh, how we love this abuse. We are the last to know we have been played. We are not playing radios, TVs, videos, and CDs. They are playing us. And oh, how we love them, especially our cell phones. So we never have to be alone to think. That is the last thing they want us to do. They can't oppress us if we think for ourselves. Let us count the ways we can escape this oppression. Let us think of ways we can resist this oppression. Let us organize, mobilize, reclaim ourselves, be ourselves, respect ourselves, love ourselves. Find a way to break the chains of this oppression so we can be really, truly free. That's right. So we can be really, truly free. Stajabu. Man, Stajabu. See, this book is from what? 2018 or something like that. This book is, no, it might be older than that. Okay, but it's definitely dated. This is not a brand new book, but guess what? Timely that is. That poem was actually it's 2015. So before T-Rump even got in office, Stajabu was on top of it. Because guess what? The more things change, the more they what? Stay the same. Yeah, this, I know it's kind of lame, but everything really is just staying the same. We go round and round and roundabout, and where do we end? Right back up where we started at. So since we're talking about that, let's go ahead and check this out right here. This is by Cornelia. Now, I don't know who Cornelia is. It don't say. It's just one word name, Cornelia. But here's the story. If you can't fight, kick. Perhaps the best and most vivid accounts of life under slavery appear in the oral testimonies of former slaves, not in historical tracts and plantation records. The interactions of men, women, and children caught in a complex web of emotions, including fear, respect, and contempt. Many accounts tell of unswerving courage and militancy in the face of homeless prospects for improvement. The following narrative describes life on a small farm in Tennessee and the advice a black mother offers her daughter. So the black mama must be Cornelia. My mother was the smartest black woman in Eden. She was as quick as a flash of lightning, and whatever she did could not be done better. She could do anything. She cooked, washed, ironed, spun, nursed, and labored in the field. She made as good a field hand as she did a cook. I have heard Master Jennings say to his wife, Fanny has her faults, but she can outwork any nigga in the country. I'd bet my life on that. My mother certainly had her faults as a slave. She was very different in nature from Aunt Caroline. Ma fussed, fought, and kicked all the time. I tell you, she was a demon. She said that she wouldn't be whipped, and when she fussed, all Eden must have known it. She was loud and boisterous, and it seemed to me that you could hear her a mile away. Father was often the prey of her high temper. With all her ability for work, she did not make a good slave. She was too high-spirited and independent. I tell you, she was a captain. The one doctrine of my mother's teaching, which was branded upon my senses, was that I should never let anyone abuse me. I'll kill you, gal, if you don't stand up for yourself, she would say. Fight. And if you can't fight, kick. And bite. I know that one. Ma was generally willing to work, but if she didn't feel like doing something, none could make her do it. At least the Jennings couldn't make or didn't make her. Bob, I don't want no sorry nigger around me. I can't tolerate you if you ain't got no backbone. Such constant warning to my father had its effect. My mother's unrest and fear of abuse spread gradually to my father. He seemed to have been made after the timid kind. He would never fuss back at my mother, or if he did, he couldn't be heard above her shouting. Pa was also a sower of all seeds. He was a yard man, house man, plowman, gardener, blacksmith, carpenter, keysmith, and anything else they chose him to be. I was the oldest child. My mother had 3 other children by the time I was about 6 years old. It was at this age that I remembered the almost daily talks of my mama on the cruelty of slavery. I would say nothing to her, but I was thinking all the time that slavery did not seem so cruel. Master and Mrs. Jennings were not mean to my mother. It was she who was mean to them. Master Jennings allowed his slaves to earn any money they could for their own use. My father had a garden of his own around his little cabin, and he also had some chickens. Mr. Dodge, who was my master's uncle and who owned the hotel in Eden, was Pa's regular customer. He would buy anything my pa brought to him, and many times he was buying his own stuff or his nephew's stuff. I have seen Pa go out at night with a big sack and come back with it full. He'd bring sweet potatoes, watermelons, chickens, and turkeys. We were fond of pig roast and sweet potatoes, and the only way to have pig roast was for Pa to go out on one of his hunting trips. Where he went, I cannot say, but he brought the booty home. The floor of one of our cabin was covered with planks. Pa had raised up 2 planks and dug a hole. This was our storehouse. Every Sunday, Master Jennings would let Pa take the wagon to carry watermelons, cider, and ginger cookies to Spring Hill, where the Baptist church was located. The Jennings were Baptist. The white folks would buy from him, as well as the free Negroes of Trenton, Tennessee. Sometimes these free Negroes would steal to our cabin at a specified time to buy a chicken or barbecue dinner. Mr. Dodge's slaves always had money and came to buy from us. Pa was allowed to keep the money he made at Spring Hill, and of course, Master Jennings didn't know about the little restaurant we had in our cabin. One day, my mother's temper ran wild. For some reason, Mistress Jennings struck her with a stick. What? Ma struck back, and a fight followed. Mr. Jennings was not at home, and the children became frightened and ran upstairs. For half an hour, they wrestled in the kitchen. Mistress, seeing that she could not get the better of Ma, ran out in the road with Ma right on her heels. In the road, my mother flew into her again. The thought seemed to race across my mother's mind to tear Mistress's clothing off her body. She suddenly began to tear Jennings' clothes off. She caught hold, pulled, ripped, and tore. Poor Mistress was nearly naked when the storekeeper got to him and pulled Ma off. Why, Fanny, what did you mean by that, he asked. Why, I'll kill her. I'll kill her dead if she ever strikes me again. I've never been able to find out the why of the whole thing. Pa heard Mr. Jennings say that Fanny would have to be whipped by law. He told Mom. 2 mornings afterward, 2 men came in at the big gate, one with a long lash in his hands. I was in the yard and I hoped they couldn't find Ma. To my surprise, I saw her running around the house, straight in the direction of the men. She must have seen them coming. I should have known she wouldn't hide. She knew what they were coming for, and she intended to meet them halfway. She swooped upon them like a hawk on chickens, like white on rice, like black on asphalt. I believe they were afraid of her, or gotta turn the page, or thought she was plumb crazy. One man had a long beard, which she grabbed with one hand and the lash with the other. Her body was made strong with madness. She was a good match for him. Mr. Jennings came and pulled her off of him. I don't know what would happen if he hadn't come at that moment, for one man had already pulled his gun out. Ma didn't see the gun until Mr. Jennings came up. On catching sight of it, she said, use your gun, use it. I wish you would, and blow my brains out if you will. That evening, Mistress Jennings came down to the cabin. Well, Fanny, she said, I'll have to send you away. You won't be whipped. I'm afraid you'll get killed. I'll go to hell or anywhere else, but I won't be whipped. Ma answered, you can't take the baby, Fanny. Aunt Mary can keep it with the other children. Mother said nothing at this. That night, Ma and Pa sat up late talking over things, I guess. Pa loved Ma, and I heard him say, I'm going too, Fanny. About a week later, she called me and told me that she and Pa were going to leave me the next day, that they were going to Memphis. She didn't know for how long, but don't be abused, Puss. She always called me Puss. My right name was Cornelia. I cannot tell in words the feelings I had at that time. My sorrow knew no bound. My very soul seemed to cry out, gone, gone, gone forever. I cried until my eyes looked like balls of fire. I felt for the first time in my life that I'd been abused. How cruel it was to take my mother and my father from me, I thought. My mother had been right. Slavery was cruel, so very cruel. Thus, my mother and father were hired to Tennessee. The next morning, they were to leave. I saw Ma working around with the baby under her arms, as if it had been a bundle of some kind. Pa came up to the cabin with an old mare for Ma to ride and an old mule for himself. Mr. Jennings was with him. Fanny, leave the baby with Aunt Mary, said Mr. Jennings very quietly. At this, Ma took the baby by its feet, a foot in each hand, and with the baby's head swinging downward, she vowed to smash its brains out before she'd leave it. Tears were streaming down her face. It was seldom that Ma cried, and everyone knew that she meant every word. Ma took her baby with her. Boy, this is a troublesome nigga here. Woo! An uneventful year passed. I was destined to be happily surprised by the return of my mother and father. They came one day and found me sitting by the roadside in a sort of trance. Puss, we come back. Me and Pa, and we come back. She and Pa embraced and caressed me for a long time. We went to the cabin and Master Jennings was there nearly as soon as we were. Hello, Fanny. How'd you get along? He asked. Why, Mr. Jennings, you know how I know how to get along, she answered. Well, I'm glad to hear that, Fanny. Ma had on new clothes and a pair of beautiful earrings. She told Aunt Mary that she stayed in Memphis 1 year without a whipping, or a cross word. Pa had learned to drink more liquor than ever, it seemed. At least he was able to get more of it, for there were many disagreements between Ma and Pa about his drinking. Drinkers will drink together, and Mr. Jennings was no exception. Pa would have the same excuse to Master Jennings offered him liquor, and of course, he wouldn't take it from anybody else. It was common to see them together, half drunk, with arms locked, walking around and around the old barn. Then Pa would put his hands behind him and let out a big whoop, which could be heard all over Eden. Our family was increased by the arrival of a baby girl. Ma was very sick, and she never did get well after that. She was cooking for Mistress Jennings one day when she came home and went to bed, and she never got up. I guess Ma was sick about 6 months. During that time, she never hit a tap of work. She said she had brought 5 children in the world for the Jennings, and that was enough. That she didn't intend to work when she felt bad. On the day my mother died, she called Pa and said, go tell Master Jennings to come in and get all the slaves too. Pa went and returned in 5 minutes with old Master. Fanny, are you any worse, said old Master. Nah, Miss Master Jennings, no worse, but I'm going to leave you at 8 o'clock. Where are you going, Fanny? Master Jennings asked, as if he didn't know what Ma was talking about dying. Ma shook her head slowly and answered, I'm going where there ain't no fighting and cussing and damning. Is there anything that you want me to do for you, Fanny? Ma told him that she reckoned there wasn't much of anything that anybody could do for her now, but I would like for you to take Puss and hire her out among ladies so she can be raised right. She would never be any good here, Master Jennings. A funny look came over Master Jennings, his head up and down. All the hands had come in and were standing around with him. My mother died at just about 8 o'clock. Damn. That's a hell of a story. Like I told you, when I read them to you, I'm doing this unrehearsed through the universe. First time I read that story, just like the first time you heard it. So you get it fresh off the rip. We're not bringing you no stale stuff that I done looked over 15 million times and thought about a whole lot. I'm bringing it to you right off the rip, fresh, like hot bread out the oven. You know how you like hot bread out the oven? Oh, maybe y'all don't, because your mamas didn't make no bread. But then again, maybe they did. So if they did, you know what I'm talking about. If not, you need to go down to the bread shop and get you a fresh loaf. Check it out. Ain't nothing like hot bread out the oven. Well, we appreciate your time and your patience. We did go over a little bit today, but I just couldn't put that story down. I was too close to the end to have to come back tomorrow and finish it off. So I figured, you know what? We're going to just have to do this all at one time. But in the meantime, I'm out. You see the donation button down there at the bottom of the video. Go ahead and click that donation button. Make your donation so we can keep on doing these works. We haven't been asking for any donations all summer long, but we're starting up a new fundraising campaign because we're not getting any funds in. We're not going back to school. As a rule, we ain't going back to school. The children didn't go back, and we ain't going back either because it ain't gonna be too much fun up in these schools trying to avoid getting that COVID-19. So we're just else, and right now we're putting all our eggs in this particular basket right here. So give us a hand, help us out some, okay? So we can keep on bringing you these stories because we have so many more fresh stories, poems, and proverbs that we intend to bring you for at least another 785 days. So look for it. We're up to 235, 40 stories and counting. Peace out, y'all. This is Doc Ock at noon and 9 signing out.